and that's Ralph and Warren, or as I knew them, Bunsey and Pete. It goes back quite a while, yeah. Anyway, we're going to hear first from Ralph, and Ralph formerly was at the head of the DNR deer program in the state of Wisconsin when the deer program was initially first starting to develop, and many of the things that he forecast we have certainly seen really develop. He's more or less going to give us the picture of the time from the time that the...
I thought Pete was going first, but if he's not, will you go and get that box out of the car?
Okay.
Pete, how about going first?
I'll get it for him.
Huh?
Okay.
I got my whole.
Oh.
And then I assume that you're also going to touch a bit on some other things besides deer. And then Warren's going to talk to us about trapping in the old days, and so that our Bachhuber trapper can pick up some new tips on how to trap muskrats and stuff.
They might learn something they don't want to learn.
I know that Pete pretty well worked his way through high school back in the years when we were in high school together, by trapping muskrats down in the Cochrane Bottoms. Okay, are you ready to go then, Ralph?
Well, I thought Pete was going first, but...
Okay, Pete's going first. We're flexible.
However it works.
So whatever time is left over.
Yeah.
Or just give them back to him.
Do you need that, or? It helps. It helps.
Okay.
And if you need a chair,
I got a big
Just
mouth,
holler.
I think you'll hear me. You have to do something with this?
It's on. All you got to do is
Okay.
point at it, you know.
Oh yeah, that's better.
yep.
Yeah.
Trapping was something we did in our family. My father was a trapper, and when he was a trapper, of course, the boys were trappers. And he had, back during the Depression, I think it was, he picked up 40 acres of land down in the Whitman Bottoms. And we still have that land today. It's a marsh down there, and it's a excellent duck marsh it was, but I understand now that the Mississippi's been drawn down quite a bit. The water down in that area is drawn down quite a bit. I haven't been there for several years. But we, as a family, trapped that land. And then my father leased land. By leasing in those days, you shook somebody's hand. You didn't write up a lease. But a lot of the farmers on the ditch behind Cochrane, and that maybe means something to the guys from Cochrane anyway, there was a ditch, a drainage ditch, we just called it the ditch. And it was like the Farners and Johnson, there was a Johnson, Cookwell, and somehow my father had talked to all those people, so we had all that land to trap. And it kept us busy, and especially when Ralph was home, he could still do it, but unfortunately the Army took him away from us. So there was my dad and myself left. We trapped, and one day I was trapping. I can't tell you exactly what day that was, but Dad wasn't feeling well, and he died the next day, right during trapping season. And that was a blow because it left me as the first person to do it. But I had some help from different people, and the other thing now, I'll tell you as I'm going along, when we sold furs, the fur buyers would come right to our homes. Remember that, Ralph? And they sort of pick them out and grade them out, and anyway, they pretty much pay us what they thought it was worth, and they were usually fair with us. And the other thing, after my father had died, I really got bogged down. I just couldn't do the work they were expecting of me, or I was expecting of myself. But I'd trap the rats, come home with the rats, try to skin those babies at night. I'd be up to 2 o'clock sometimes skinning those rats, and I was not a good skinner. My dad could do a rat in 1 minute flat. He had the skin off of that rat. And then we would take the rat from there, put it on a stretch board, and let it there to dry. And so that was the way it was. And then all of a sudden, this is a whole thing is thrown in my lap. So anyway, we had a fur buyer named Kaya. I don't know if anybody ever sold rats, but he was from Lynxville. Nice, nice man. And he would come, and the rats you had from that day, save them for him. Don't do anything to them. He'd take them home, and he had skinners down there. So anyway, that went on for a while, but I was still skinning a lot of rats, and I didn't want to do that. And so anyway, I got him on the side one day, and I says, look here, I got several buyers coming now, and I said, I'm going to make you a deal. And I made him a deal. You take these rats, come up here twice a week, so I don't have to skin any. And the Frigidaire was full half the time too, you know, with these muskrats waiting to be skinned. But that, he says, that's a deal. And he was a fine fellow. He'd come up twice a week, took my rats, gave me a little advice. He's from Lynxville. And Lynxville is down below La Crosse, so he had a pretty good hike to come up there. But that's the buying thing. Now, the fur farm, we had the 40-acre land, and Dad turned that into a fur farm. It was sort of a funny way to get it farmed. When you owned the land, you had to buy the rats off of your own land. Well, I guess that's right. The DNR owns the deer too, I understand. So anyway, they take an inventory of it. You determine how many rats are there. You pay for the rats, and then you have a fur farm. Now, what's the advantage of that? Particular advantage to Ralph and I was that when we were in university at Madison together, we couldn't trap at the right time, but we could trap during the Christmas break and the between semester break. So then we would come home and really trap the rats, and that worked out very well for us. And when we trapped for farmers' land, we either had a 60-40 relationship with them or a 1/3, 2/3 relationship with them. We got the big part of it, this 60%, and 40 went to the farmer. And it was fair. I think it was fair to the farmers too. And, but then, like I say, Ralph went off to the Army. That changed things a bit. And then one day my dad wasn't feeling well, and he died the next day. And of course, like I say, that left me alone, but that's what I wanted to. I could handle it as long as I told you about this buyer coming. And he could recognize I was all screwed up, so he helped me. He helped me.
Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking.
It was a mess there for a while, you know, and like when Dad was skinning, like I say, he could skin one of those rats in 1 minute, and there was nothing to it. But I'd be fiddling around a long time. But I think I just about told you everything I had there. And if anybody would like to ask me anything about trapping, I would try to answer it for you. But
How many rats would you get on a good day?
good question. Ken Kling used to ask me that every day when I came to school as a school teacher. And the rats were, that's another thing. The war was on. The Russians weren't shipping furs to us right at that point. The rats were really good. I recall they'd run them a bunch and pay you $6 or $6.50 a piece.
I guess I never saw that.
No, you maybe didn't, Ralph. But and I know I would come to school, and Ken Kling, who was my teacher in the 7th, 8th grade, Says, well, how many muskrats did you get today? I said, I got 16. Well, $6, that's $100. He didn't make that in 3 months, did he? He's a teacher, he was smart. But it was a very, very good thing. And it's like that marsh, we own that marsh today. And then Gary, you can't prosecute me at this point, can you?
Statute of limitations. I assume there was a little poaching along the way.
No, this is
Don't ask
after
me
Ralph
any of
was in the army, see? And down in our marsh, Ralph, up in the corner there, I had a trap set in this house. And when I got there that day, there was something in it, but it was a mink. He had been in there raiding my muskrats. See, I owned those muskrats. We paid for those. And
He's stealing from
this is how I justified it, Gary. That would go in court, wouldn't it? Anyway, I took that fur, and my dad's car was still there. We hadn't sold that yet after he passed away. And I went down to the east end of Winona, and they had fur buyers there. And first thing they said, the mink is out of season. Season's not open on mink. I says, I know that. But I got a mink here and you want that mink. And I'll sell it to you. Well, then they started price. He kept going down, trying to get them up and get them up. And I said, $35, that's it. If that hide is worth $35, and, oh, no, we'll turn you in and you can get in a lot of trouble. And I said, you're not going to turn me in because you get in trouble too. But anyway, I got $35 out of him. And that was a lot of money at that time. Plus the muskrats, Ralph, you recall, I think we could sell them, like I said, $5, $6.
Yeah, I don't recall that high.
No, you were gone when this was all happening. And,
You missed the golden time.
Yeah, the best was yet to come when I left.
well, there's a secret to that, Ralph. When he got back, Ralph was in Europe, I was in the Pacific during the war. And we communicated to each other. It took probably a month and a half to get the letter from one to the other. But all we would ever talk about, he'd always say, we're going to go to Madison when we get out. Just remember that. We're going back to Madison to school when we get out. So we did. We got down there, and it was a good deal. Gary knows that. Gary had a job. Can I tell this too, Gary?
Go ahead, I don't know what you're going to say.
There were about 5,000 co-eds in Wisconsin at that time. About 5,000
Well, maybe you better not.
Now, one sure place those girls would go, the library. And who's sitting in the door there in the entrance to the library but Gary Slotstein? So I said, hey, that Gary's got her made, you know. And he said, there's all these gals, you know. But I was up in a dairy and food laboratory washing dishes. So that was quite different, wasn't it, Ralph? Ralph gave me his job. But nevertheless, Gary, we got free milk, we got free ice cream, we got free butter, and if you bought a box of crackers, you could have a heck of a lunch up there. It didn't cost you anything except the crackers. So we were doing okay too.
See, and I was just surrounded by those dry old books.
And 5,000 women.
Had to buy your own lunch.
I can just see you sitting there. I did talk about the fur dryer, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
The one thing you haven't talked about is the fact that we had a bunch of water spaniel retrievers,
Yeah.
and they needed food.
Yes. Should I tell them how we gave them food?
Yeah, you tell them what we gave them food.
We cleaned those rats in the basement. I can't understand how my mother stood that. And we had an old wood stove in the basement, the old ones you had. And you had a
Wash water.
wash boiler, you know how big the wash boilers are. So we put the boiler on the stove, fill it with water, get it hot, and then we take those carcasses that we just got done cleaning out and skinning, throw them in there, and boil them for, I don't know, maybe half hour. Feed them back to the dogs. Oh boy, those dogs like those carcasses, didn't they? But it was fine. That's about all I have to say, I think, Gary.
Okay.
There's a question over here.
Oh, excuse me,
Anybody
I should have
trapping on
asked.
anybody trapping on your land today?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is there
Oh,
much
yeah.
trapping going on today?
I don't, does anybody know about any trapping now?
Max Bauer.
Yeah, there's a lot of trapping going on today. Everything is pretty well covered. There's trappers everywhere.
Muskrats?
Yes, muskrats.
Then what does a muskrat bring today?
This past year, they got up to about $5. And that was much higher than they've been for the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, they were a buck for a while, something like that,
Oh, yeah.
weren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, but see, this was the thing I said, the Russians weren't shipping any furs here at that time, and that drove the price up.
Well, I'm out of the financial end of it, but I think you're leasing the land, or the employees are now leasing the land for duck hunting. And I don't know whether the people that lease the land and trap, or lease the land for trapping or not.
I don't think Jeff would have put that in the contract.
Well,
But, yeah, I haven't been down there, Ralph. Each winter I say to the boys, we're going down to the marsh and we're gonna look it all over. And then Jeff has been there times between, but apparently the water, like I say, the level is down, and he says that the pond, we had a pond in there about 15 acres, you think?
15?
15 acres,
Yeah,
the pond
15,
itself.
yeah, with mostly water.
Yeah, well, and I know that it was at least this deep because I sunk a canoe in it one day. And I rode that canoe down because I didn't know what to do. I had that goofy dog in the boat, and he was hanging on to me. He couldn't swim himself. It was disaster. Ken Kling was there fishing or hunting with me. He was out in Dad's blind. And I'm standing there with a shotgun above my head and the dog hanging on me on the other side. And then Kling yells out at me, "Quack, Warren, quack," he said. "There's some ducks circling the pond." he almost got circled too. This is my 7th and 8th grade teacher. But we have fond memories of that land and fond memories of our father with that land. But they have plans for that that'll make it sort of public thing. Anything else?
Any other questions?
How do you set a trap? Is it underwater or?
Well, yeah, sometimes we, excuse me, what we like to do, and sometimes there's argument about whether that was right or not, we'd like to go up to that muskrat house, and here's another thing I can tell you guys. We'd go down to George Stock, wasn't it, that had the gas station? Yeah. He'd take an old inner tube, cut that baby off, and he'd put a rubber glove on that inner tube, so you could take that thing and go right under the water on the edge of the house, and then you could actually set your trap right up in there where the rats want to be. Now, there was a time that we couldn't do that, wasn't there?
Well, it wasn't legal except
Wasn't legal.
on the fur farm.
It wasn't legal
See,
unless
I'm
it was your
telling you,
place.
Gary. Oh, that's true. And
You could trap them, but they didn't want to make it too easy for you to trap them.
and then, yeah, the fur farm, that was, did I tell them that we trapped college time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wonderful thing that we could do in our college Christmas break and then again in the semester break and that we could trap.
Did you ever make yourself a coat?
No,
Oh, they're so pretty. The fur is so pretty.
it is, yeah, yeah. Yeah, are you talking about the mink or the muskrat though?
Rat.
Rats, the muskrats, yeah. I think that's almost prettier than the mink, yeah.
At $6 a skin, you were selling them.
Yeah, the best fun I had is when I go to Winona and fight with those guys. You wouldn't believe I do that, Gary, at that age, would you? I'd have you a lawyer, you know.
You probably lost more money.
But it was sort of fun. And my dad had passed away, like I say, but we still had his car, so I could take that car and go to Winona, or take the car down to the marshland too. Otherwise, I'd had to walk all that distance. But they were good days.
Well, I hate to say it, but you're getting into my time here.
I know what.
As much as I enjoy you here talking about
We'll give him more time.
I think there's another question over there for you too.
Oh,
You remember Henry Miller in Fountain City? I know my uncle was Jim Check. He started Checkville. When
Yeah.
I was a little kid, I stayed there.
yep.
And he trapped back in those
Oh, in
bottoms.
the Checkville bottoms?
Yeah. And I remember him coming with a gunny sack full of rats
Oh, yeah.
when I was a little kid. And of course, I think he worked for Fountain Brewery.
There were a lot of rats in that marsh.
And he always had to come and have his beer, you know, before he'd go home. And I can remember a whole damn gunny sack full of rats.
Yeah, when you start cleaning it was fine. Like I say, when we had our father living,
But
yeah.
your dad just punched that rat too.
What he did is hang it up by the tail
Yeah.
and clip off the two legs with a sharp knife, pull the hide down, 2 cuts on the eyes, pull it off.
But didn't he just take his hand? 'Cause you remember Ronnie Walters, so you know
Yeah.
The Ronnie trapped a lot of animals. I know my kids were trapping there, and he came there one time, and of course they were, you know, oh, he said, give me this rat. He just went to behind, took his fist, punched
I
the
didn't
two.
quite do that, but yeah, you could do that.
Okay, we're ready to shift gears.
Yeah, I don't know whether he has any handouts. There's some more of them in the car. I don't know just how many people are here. Oh, you got them. You got them all right here. Well, but you can get some. Yeah, I have some handouts here that I prepared largely as excerpts from the book that came out of my experiences with the DNR back in 1949 to about 1954. They could do that too. They might. It's prepared with numbered pages on it, so if somebody wants to go along and with the pages, I think it might make it a little bit easier.
Just past the box. Yeah. Just past the box.
Here's a, what do you guys want? One for each of you? Or? Otherwise, just pass it.
Yeah, one.
Well, why did you do that?
Pass them.
Get popped on a little bit here.
Yeah, I just pass them around until they're gone. If there are any left over, don't throw them away because I might be able to use them at another point. But anyway, the handout was something that I debated about. Sometimes you put a handout out there and everybody's looking ahead. And I'd appreciate it if we just go on the pages. And the pages are numbered in the upper right-hand corner from 1 to 22, I believe. And most of the pages are just taken right out of the book that we wrote I think I finished with my part of it in 1954, 55. And it was ready for publication in 1956. And it was actually printed by the Game Management Division of the Conservation Department in 1958. So that first page, you can skip over that. Second page is just the front page for the book. And the third is my thank you to the officers and members of the Historical Society for making this presentation possible. I think most of us who lived in Buffalo County in the mid to late 30s remember the days, weeks, even months, one of the highlight of the day to see one of these animals at any range. but now they are truly abundant, and certainly that's a tribute to the work of the personnel of DNR and local game management, and to the citizens of Buffalo County for having adjusted to the frequency with which they encountered these days. We have arrived at a time when growing populations of deer, turkeys, Canada geese, and more recently black bear, coyotes, and timber wolves are likely to create abrasive, confrontational problems. Hopefully reasonable conduct will continue to be the norm. We live now about 60 miles north of here in the town of Brunswick in Eau Claire County, and we have a growing population of black bear there as we speak. Sometimes they come into our backyard, raid the bird feeders, and knock over the containers for the sunflower seeds that we reserved for the birds, and as high as 5 or 6 of them have been seen crossing the highway on Highway 37 and also over on 53 and 93. So there is a resident population of bear, and they are growing rapidly. So I would expect, if you don't already have sightings of bear down here, that you will have them very soon, because that's about the way the deer started out. There was deer in the north part of the country, but there wasn't any down here during our lifetimes until about the 1930s. If you go to page 4, you'll see what the original environment was. Hardwood evergreen trees up in the northwest corner of the state, hardwood evergreen and interspersed with swamps and marshes, good deer country in the northeast corner, and then oak maple forest and prairie openings south. And really rough estimates at that time, because there wasn't any way really to really determine exactly how many deer per square mile there was, but that was the best they could do with what they had at that point. And I'll just skip on through page 5 and go to page 6, which if you find a remnant that looks anything like that these days, it's probably in the Flambeau River State Forest. And we were up there a few years ago, and it's really still a magnificent sight to see the big timber, but that has suffered greatly from the wind losses that we've had over there. A period of years, it just seems Ladysmith and that part of the state, right through the Flambeau River State Forest, has had some really nasty windstorms. Big debates about whether or not it should be cleaned up or not, and that was finally resolved. On page 7 is a picture that appeared in the book and was used by us in the book. Came from the Lindu Studios in Ladysmith, and Roger Lindu is a good friend of my co-author Bert Dahlberg, and he had a supply of these. Seemed like an unlimited supply of old forestry pictures and everything, but they were logging here in 1901 and 1906, and believe it or not, there were still places up in Iron County and the counties up north where you could see remnants of these logging camps, and at least one in Iron County I ran across that still looked very much like that and was operating in Iron County in 1948 and 49. But shortly after that, it kind of ran out of timber almost everywhere except over in Marinette County. There's still a managed forest over there, and the Menominee Indian Reservation, I believe, has a pretty good forest on it. What happened is there was an abundance of wildlife here historically, and on page number 8 you'll see the species that were common and relatively common throughout the state, and how they were eventually either extirpated from the state or have become less common. There have been some great successes. Elk, for example, were fairly common throughout the state. Last reported killed in Buffalo County, 1868. But they have been restored to northern Wisconsin, and there's a herd up there that is doing fairly well. They're suffering some rather substantial car kills and some wolf kills. But most of these will not be coming back. The sandhill crane, of course, is doing fine, and even the whooping crane, which was considered a goner, has been restored to Wisconsin. And this year, the first whooping crane chicks were actually born at the Nisita Wildlife Refuge in many, many years. Turkey were common in the southern part of the state. Last killed in Grant County in 1872. Turkeys have been restored with an abundance. The turkey kill is running around 50,000 a year. Number 9, give you some idea about the Wisconsin deer range about 1912. And you will see there that in the crosshatched, the large crosshatches, Buffalo County's in there, and just a corner of the upper part of Buffalo County is included in the deer range about 1912. And they were scarce in Buffalo County and in all that range. I would imagine they were more scarce in Buffalo County than they would have been in Wood and Juneau and Monroe counties, where they had large areas of forest. But anyway, the deer began to increase well, it didn't start to increase in 1929 because the hunting seasons were still going on, taking a good share of the yearly increase in the population. But about 1929, they began to increase, and tighter restrictions on the kill, and the beginning of a conservation warden force were able to enforce the laws, and deer began to increase. By the time you get to page 11, the Wisconsin deer range, about 1938, that's about where my recollection of deer in Buffalo County comes in. There's a couple spots in Buffalo County, and I can remember the discussions going on about somebody saw a deer here or there in the Cochrane area, or especially down along the Dyke Road, or along the road going into the Whitman Dam at the time they were building it down there. And the question always came, where did those deer come from? You know, where did they come from? And there was some talk that the deer in Buffalo County all came from a small herd of deer that were in the city park in Arcadia, Wisconsin, and got released during a flood down there. Well, that may have contributed to it, but deer being what they are, they're very productive animals, and if they have protection and they have a good habitat, they increase very rapidly, as we will see a little bit further on. Page 12 has the Wisconsin deer range in 1954, and they're pretty much scattered throughout the state. Only a few areas down around Milwaukee that don't show them as having a population, and they probably do too. But anyway, one of the things that we studied trying to determine what the deer range was, there was a number of reasons for that. First of all, try to answer the question of where the deer all come from, and the other was how can you manage a deer herd if you don't know what their yearly range is. But page 13 has the results of some releases. We were trapping and transplanting deer to the Creeks Meadows Public Hunting Grounds in Burnett County, and those deer were put into a strange place, and this is where they were recovered. So there was no unilateral direction in which they all went to the north or south or east or west. So I don't know, short of my theory on dispersal was that if they get over the hill and they find something to eat, and it's good, they're going to stay there. and the better the food is, the more it's going to attract them. Page number 14 has a picture of a fawn and some of the work that we did in trying to determine how productive the herd was. And it shows our occurrence of single, twin, and triplet embryos that were examined and by the veterinarians that we had working for us. And then there was a comparison between our percent males and percent males in other deer populations, Texas, Virginia, Utah, and California. I don't know what that means, except that a good percentage of the population is predestined to be males, and I think there's been some recent work, I haven't read it very thoroughly, about the buck fawn population, using that as an analysis for the health of the deer population. If you get to page 15, take a look at it. Take a look at it when you have a little more time, maybe. Statewide hunting season age ratios. We were able to, in the early part of the time that I was with the Deer Project, go to New York State and work with Severinghaus and Cheatham, who were on the Deer Project out there, and they had developed a method for aging deer, like tooth wear. And the book actually has pictures of the jaws of the deer that we used for aging deer in these population studies. The big thing is how many deer are there, and how many deer are we killing, and are we killing enough or not enough, and what should be the mixture. And there's all kinds of things get into it besides just saying, well, we should be taking so many does and so many fawns and so many bucks. There's politics involved in it. There's deer damage claims involved in it. Can't let the herd get too big without becoming a first-class nuisance. And it's sad to see that some people, have got to the point where you see stories, and I haven't been first-hand on any of this, but stories where people are actually going out and just shooting deer and letting them lay there, and that gripes me in no small fashion. The picture on page 17 is what, about the time that I went to work for DNR, is what the average individual would have thought if he was going up north deer hunting. North deer shack, and those guys went up there and they stayed usually for a week, 10 days maybe, I guess, if the season was that long. And they camped out in a rugged fashion, had just a good old time, but that was thing. I conducted deer checks along the Flambeau River State Forest during part of that period of time, and in Jackson County and over on the Mesita Wildlife Refuge one time we had a hunt over there. And but there is no hunt like those up there, unless it be the one that you have when you can walk out your front door and get your deer and tow it back into the summer kitchen, I guess. But anyway, the page 18 has a Wisconsin deer hunting season and kill. There is any number of online records now about deer hunting seasons and kill, but this is kind of a historical one. It'll show how we've gone from any deer no bag limit to a bag limit of 2 and on down. And you can see how they had to tighten up on the kill, and in order to increase the population. And then page 19 continues that table, along with gunshot accidents during deer hunting seasons. And that has been a concern for many years, is that unfortunately people aren't careful enough, I guess is what I can say. That I think people are generally trying to be careful, but you've got a gun that will kill, and it can happen very easily. So number 20, I don't think most people who haven't kept up with that would realize that there is this much of a vehicle kill of deer in Wisconsin. This is a 2004 fiscal report, and it shows that in Buffalo County, for example, there were 320 deer removed by contractors. Those are the people who now come and pick up the dead deer. And you see them painted with different colors, signs on them. I think that's the way that they have of evaluating how many times that deer has been counted, or whether it's been counted more than once. But anyway, the total for the year, if you goes removed by contractors, salvaged with free permits, and discounting any that might have might have disappeared on the Menominee Indian Reservation. There were almost 50,000 deer in 2004 were a result of vehicle crashes with cars. It's a bad enough thing that the deer are injured, but many people are also injured in these automobile accidents. There are 2 times during the year when you've got to be especially careful. And I'm reminded of that almost every time I get in the car. My wife says, you know, it's time to start watching out for the deer. She says, and one of them is during the rut. Those are being chased by the bucks all over the place, and the yearlings have been dispossessed. And then again at the fawn drop, you will find that the yearling deer are running on their own, and the doe is taking care of the new fawn. So, but in the last one I have is on page 22, and I just found that this morning or last night. Wisconsin's 2005 deer hunt ranks as the 6th best in Wisconsin deer harvest history, with hunters registering deer from all seasons, including in final registration figures in a recently compiled 2000 big game hunting summary. Just 20 years ago, in 1985, hunters registered 315,000 deer. That was almost 153,000 deer fewer than the 2005 harvest. And 10 years earlier, the statewide harvest was only 131,000. They say only 131,000. At the time that I was working for DNR, 131,000 would have thought to be, you know, that would have been in any deer season with a good season. And but there is more information available on this website, and I'd encourage you, if you're interested in statistics about the Wisconsin deer herd, to get in there. There is a lot of stuff. DNR has some very, very good information about their programs, parks, anything you want to name, and it just takes time. But if you've got a computer and you want some good information, why I'd suggest getting into some of those, and it's just great. The one that I looked at here was a 2000 or December 20th, 1999 report. It was edited by Paul Fulton, and George Meyer was the secretary of the department at that time. Started it out with how the department and the conservation programs have blossomed in Wisconsin. And with that, I think I will say that is it. And ready for questions. Yes.
I'm interested because I came from the Winnebago-Waupaca-Waushara County area. The number of deer kill is just astronomical. I guess it's an issue of population of people, which is quite high there.
Are you talking about the gun kill now? Or
no, I'm talking about the road kill.
The road kill, yeah. Well, it's a combination too, the number of cars and the speed at which they're driving.
I mean, those three counties are just really, really
high. I haven't tried to analyze it that close, but you probably found a segment there that probably.
Well, it interested me.
Buffalo County would not be coming in very far behind.
Oh yeah, yeah, it would.
Or does it really?
Yeah.
It's amazing how many of the more southern, highly urbanized counties are running very high deer kills.
On
page 20.
On the vehicle kill deer, yeah.
And that's got to be simple tracking.
On the one chart that shows the number of wild animals declined so drastically until 1950. That was due to unregulated hunting?
Well, part of it was due from when you go back to 1912. Yeah. Part of it was due to unregulated hunting or loosely regulated hunting at that time.
Okay.
There were, if you go back and check the deer seasons, there were a lot of one deer antler only or something of that.
I see that on page 18. The regulation began to start about 1917, 18.
Yeah. Believe me, the thought of killing a doe in deer season
Yeah.
was not a very popular idea when it was first came about. Buffalo County actually was one of the leaders in the acceptance of killing female deer.
Yeah.
Because the herd was increasing. They wanted to retain the shotgun seasons, and probably could not have controlled them with a rifle season if they had any deer with rifles. I must confess that right now I think that still there's not any antlerless hunting with rifles in Buffalo County, I don't think.
You forgot to mention the fact that I ended up with a deer in my car a few years ago.
Yeah, you are one of many, as I am. We've both gone that route.
Yeah, the deers didn't get in the car.
No. Yeah, Irma had a car, or a deer jumped into the front of her car and ended up in the front seat, 2 miles from home.
If in the 1800s the deer herd was small, how come it's grown so large today?
Ideal environment and
Okay.
management.
Grazing
I
more
don't know.
corn.
Pardon?
Grazing more corn.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, yes, yeah.
The problem today is access. So many outsiders, recreational buyers, they only shoot one deer and that's a buck.
Yeah.
And they can't.
When was the first season? 42 in Buffalo County?
In Buffalo County? I would think it was about that time. I'm not sure. I wasn't here then at 42. But I had intended to do more on that, but I got real behind time. Anybody know for sure when Buffalo County had their first?
My dad came from North Dakota, in Buffalo County. He said he hunted 3 years and never saw a deer. I don't know if there was a season or not.
No, you don't see he was just checking. Pardon? Trample. Yeah. Well, they had that population that got out of the deer pens over there, so they had a few to shoot at.
There's no deer in 34 around here.
Who's that?
I mean in 24.
24.
Not 34 either.
24. Probably not very many in 44,
You
but
saw deer and you got buck fever. Couldn't
yeah.
get the thing.
Well, that there could be a lot of deer around. You could still get buck fever, though. I was in a hunting party one time, a bunch of wardens and DNR people, and this one guy missed a dead shot at a deer, and he took a resin about that. He said the scope was so powerful that the deer just came right through the scope and went the other way.
Ralph, back when you were in the DNR, did you get some pressure from the deer, from the public regarding shooting does? Is that one of the reasons that you maybe didn't want to stay with the DNR?
Well, yeah. The purpose of the Deer Project really was to get information, to try to get statistics and things that would establish a program. But if you know the history of the deer laws at that time, Aldo Leopold, who went on to become, an icon of the ecology and conservation movements, was a conservation commissioner at that time and chairman of the Conservation Commission, and he recommended, I can call it that, I think, the infamous 1943 any deer season, and that resulted in a kill of substantially higher numbers, maybe 3 times the number of deer that had been killed, maybe 4 times the number. And people were afraid that the deer herd would be wiped out. And it took again until about 1949, because before there was any other general statewide antlerless hunting. And the Deer Project was involved in that. We were going around and checking deer yards in the wintertime and recommending that more deer be taken. And we conducted deer tours. I don't know whether there's any, there is definitely in the book pictures of deer tours. The Conservation Congress members, and Deer Committee did a lot of work going through deer yards in the wintertime, checking out deer feeding programs and other management or mismanagement efforts going on. But it was never easy to promote an any deer season. I had one of the things that I did. We had some argument within the department as to how far you could go with antlerless hunting, and Buffalo County was an ideal place, in my view, to have tried it and had it succeed. One of the first years I was a deer biologist, I was a deer biologist in central Wisconsin out of Black River Falls, and they had tremendous concentration of deer in the central Wisconsin area, and they were feeding deer, and there was a law that said $1 for every deer tag has to go to feed deer, and believe me, Henry Kramer was an assistant commissioner at that time, believed if the law said that dollar was going to feed deer, it was going to feed deer, even if they needed it or not. Once you start feeding them, you can concentrate them, and you can create more problems there. But anyway, the result was that we had an antlerless season in 1949, and then does were also legal in 1950 and 51, and then when 52 came along, there wasn't just too awful many deer left in some of these areas. I think they had overdone it a little bit, and it became hard to go to Fifield, Park Falls, or some of the places up north to argue for any deer season there, because they were so strong for the buck season, which had served them well. But I can remember a judge up in Price County, and he was adamantly opposed to any thought of it. And he got up one night, we were having a meeting, and I was to appear after he appeared. And he got up, and he's sitting there about like, Gary is right now. And he got up and said what he had to say. And then when I got up, he looked at his hearing aid and sat down in front of me. And I was kind of angry at him until I finally found out that he was one of the guys that was really instrumental in saving the Flammable River State Forest. So if you ever go up there, you might say a kind word for them, for Judge Lewis by now, and Judge Seven, I suppose. I think I'm at the end of my time. Don't want to get into somebody else's here. Thank you very much.